What do you think are going to be the most important, at least economic issues that should be on that discussion agenda when we start debating presidential elections next year?
I think the presidential candidates will have no problem coming up with all sorts of things for the dialogue they want to have. The dialogue we're having, and the president's going to have until the day he leaves office, and I suspect beyond that as well, brings us back to that middle class economics. What can you do to reverse several decades of slower growth in incomes for the middle class? What can you do to expand the size of the pie overall with the types of innovation we've been talking about? What you can do to make sure people capture more of that pie with the types of changes we've been talking about, and participate in the economy. And I think that's the biggest issue facing the U.S. economy, and that's certainly the debate we're trying to have and would like to see going forward.
One of the, actually a couple questions that have come through say, how come in all these conversations we never talk about poverty and poor people? We talk about the middle class, sometimes we'll talk about the rich, but we never talk about poverty and poor people.
Right. The answer to every one of your questions, this one included, is the 2014 economic report of the president, where we had an entire chapter assessing the war on poverty 50 years later. And one of the big findings was if you looked at pre-tax and transfer incomes, what people get in terms of their market incomes, there had not been a substantial reduction in poverty for a lot of the reasons we've been talking about in terms of inequality. But then if you look at our public programs, especially the Earned Income Tax Credit and nutrition assistance, they've driven a very large reduction in poverty rates, about a 40% reduction in poverty rates. If I look at the next 50 years, if we say the same thing, that market incomes haven't improved and the only reason we've made progress on poverty is public policy, to me that feels untenable. We really need to be raising those incomes. So the minimum wage is certainly part of that, and it would lift over 1 million people out of poverty. But expanding everything from preschool through community college, I think everything I've been talking about under the heading middle class economics would reduce poverty as well.
There's several students in the room, and they have some particular questions that they'd like to ask you. One of them is, it doesn't make sense that we spend as much as we do on defense and the military, and it far exceeds everybody else. Does this make sense to you?
The United States faces significant threats around the world. We play a really important role in fostering global economic stability. There's certainly been